The reorganization of the First Legion. With his oath to his legion sworn, Lionel Johnson saw the rise of his Dark Angels, placing new masters over each of the wings he had created from the bones of the Legion's old hosts, and formalizing the Angels' various informal orders in the style of Caliban's knightly orders. With the first influx of new recruits from Caliban now ready to join the First Legion, comprising those older warriors like Luther that had opted to undergo the painful and unreliable cybernetic and genetic augmetic enhancement process that allowed them to reach levels of ability comparable to true Space Marines, Lionel Johnson swiftly incorporated them within this new structure, taking care to assign posts and commands based only on merit and not due to origin or the simple virtue of time in service. A number of the Lion's old companies from the Order found positions within his inner circle, and despite the stringent trials the Lion insisted upon, some of the oldest veterans were less than pleased to yield their authority to these comparative newcomers. The old Grand Legion chantry on Grammari was torn down, replaced with a more modest fortress to secure the industrial sprawl of that world. For though the Legion would maintain a great fortress monastery on Caliban, its true heart and seat of power would be the sanctum of its Primarch aboard his flagship, the ancient Gloriana-class battleship Invincible Reason. For many, this reinvigoration of the Legion served to dispel the malaise that had long lain over the First, discarding the vain glory that had sapped the worth from victory and embracing the purity of the Primarch's vision. Though, for a silent minority of veterans, the sudden and jarring dissolution of old traditions and the introduction of new Calibanite blood left a lingering sense of doubt. The Lion chose to confront any intransigence with the stoic indifference that was his hallmark, choosing to immerse the Legion in war and trust that his example would dispel any doubt. Dispersed under the masters and knight commanders of the Legion, he set the Dark Angels to their task, while the Primarch led his own fleet to answer a call for aid received only recently by the newly installed astropathic Qua at Caliban. His destination was the distant world of Carcassam, where the Ultramarines garrison there had resisted siege for over 8 solar months after a sudden uprising against Imperial rule among the population living within the ruined halls of the Shattered World Fortress. The desperate rebels had opened hidden vaults deep beneath the surface of the planet and set loose a biogenic phage that had reshaped the broken people of their world into twisted, blood-hungry ghouls whose minds were burned clean of all thought except the need to hunt and kill. These monstrous mutant creations then fell upon the unsuspecting warriors of the 13th Legion with a ferocity that gave pause to even the warriors of the Legiones Astartes. With much of the Great Crusade's strength concentrated to the galactic east, there were few forces available to relieve the beleaguered Ultramarines. Given the history of Carcassam, few expected the Dark Angels to return. So, when the Invincible Reason broke through the Materium and entered real space, its drop bays already open and primed for launch, Praetor Arteon of the 13th, the commander of the all but overrun Astartes garrison, lost for a moment the famous stoic reserve of the Ultramarines and cried out for joy at the sight. The Lion himself was at the forefront of the relief force, cutting a path through the teeming hordes of flesh ghouls that threatened to overrun the Ultramarines. At the head of 1,000 ebon-armored veterans of the Dreadwing, the new master of the First Legion made swift work of the foe. A curtain of superheated plasma scouring clean the walls and bunkers of the Ultramarines' fortress. At his heels came the full force of the fleet, 10,000 transhuman warriors of the Dark Angels. By their blades was the enemy put to rout, then annihilated as they cowered in their bolt holes. When the Ultramarines sallied forth from their fortifications to meet them among the sea of corpses and ash, they did so with some trepidation, perhaps expecting some measure of retribution for the last meeting between their legions at Carcassonne, or a demand to cede the world to the First Legion in return for their aid. Yet the Lion had no interest in old grudges or the tawdry business of accolades and honors, and with the killing complete, he left without fanfare, leaving behind only an empty banner to mark the Dark Angel's debt to the Ultramarines paid. That this was among his first battles was no accident, but a statement of his intent. He was not to play at politics, not to build empires nor monuments. He was pledged to war and death, to kill the enemies of the Emperor and nothing else. And so it was, this doctrine in mind, that Lionel Johnson and his Dark Angels took up their duties in the latter days of the Great Crusade.